On the night of the 24th of November, 1971, a man jumped out of a commercial airplane into a freezing Pacific Northwest storm. He was carrying 4 parachutes and $200,000 in cash. He was never seen again. No body was ever found. No parachute was ever recovered. No confirmed identity was ever established. And the $200,000, a euro, wrapped in specific rubber bands, with serial numbers the FBI had photographed before handing over a euro, almost completely vanished from the face of the earth. In the 53 years since that jump, the FBI investigated over 1,000 suspects. They interviewed witnesses across 4 decades. They analyzed handwriting, fingerprints, voice recordings, and a single clip-on tie left behind on seat 18C. They found nothing that led to an arrest. But here is what almost nobody talks about. Before D.B. Cooper jumped, he handed a flight attendant a note. That note has been analyzed by some of the most sophisticated forensic document examiners in the world. And buried inside that note, a euro, in the specific words he chose, the specific demands he made, and the specific way he wrote them, a euro, are clues that investigators believe tell us exactly who this man was. Not his name, but who he was, what he knew, where he had been, and how he planned something that the FBI still calls the only unsolved case of air piracy in American aviation history. This is the story of D.B. Cooper. And this is the story of the note he left behind. Welcome to Shadow Cipher Files. Northwest Orient Flight 305 departed Portland, Oregon at 2:50 inches the afternoon on the 24th of November, 1971. It was the day before Thanksgiving. The flight was bound for Seattle. It carried 36 passengers and 6 crew members. It was supposed to take 45 minutes. A man in seat 18C had purchased his ticket at the counter in Portland using cash. He gave his name as Dan Cooper. He wore a black suit, a white shirt, a black clip-on tie, and dark sunglasses. He ordered a bourbon and soda. He paid for it. He was polite to the flight attendants who served him. At some point shortly after takeoff, he passed a folded note to a flight attendant named Florence Schaffner. She assumed it was a phone number. She put it in her pocket without reading it. He leaned toward her and said, quietly, "You had better look at that note." She opened it. The exact original wording of the note has never been officially released by the FBI. What has been confirmed is that it stated he had a bomb in his briefcase, that he was hijacking the aircraft, and that he wanted $200,000 in negotiable American currency. 4 parachutes, a euro, 2 primary, and 2 reserve, a euro, and a fuel truck standing by in Seattle to refuel the plane upon landing. Florence Schaffner showed the note to the captain. The captain contacted Seattle-Tacoma Airport and Northwest Orient Airlines. The airline made the decision to comply. What happened next changed American aviation forever. The plane landed in Seattle. The passengers were told there was a mechanical delay. While they waited, Northwest Orient arranged the ransom. The $200,000 came from a Seattle bank and was put into a cloth bag. The FBI photographed every single bill. The serial numbers of all $10,020 bills were recorded. The 4 parachutes were delivered to the aircraft. Cooper inspected everything. He accepted the money. He released the passengers and most of the crew. He kept the captain, the first officer, a flight engineer, and 1 flight attendant on board. He then gave the pilots a very specific set of instructions. He told them to fly toward Mexico City. He specified an airspeed of no more than 150 knots. He specified a maximum altitude of 10,000 feet. He specified that the landing gear remain deployed for the entire flight. And he specified a specific heading out of Seattle. These instructions were not random. Aviation experts who analyzed them immediately recognized something significant. These were not the demands of someone who had seen a movie about hijacking. These were the demands of someone who understood aircraft performance, fuel consumption, aerodynamics, and the operational limits of a Boeing 727 at low altitude and low speed. Whoever D.B. Cooper was, he knew how airplanes worked. The plane took off from Seattle at 7:40 inches the evening, somewhere over the wilderness of southwest Washington, at an altitude estimated between 7 and 10,000 feet. in outside air temperatures of approximately 7 degrees below zero Fahrenheit, in the middle of a Pacific storm system. The aft stairs of the Boeing 727 were lowered from inside, and D.B. Cooper jumped. Now let us talk about the note, because the note is where the cipher begins. The FBI has never released the full verbatim text of the demand note. What has been confirmed through the flight attendants who read it, and through partial statements released over decades of investigation, is that the note was handwritten, that it was concise, and that it contained specific technical terminology. The word negotiable was used to describe the currency. This is not casual language. This is financial terminology. A person who says they want negotiable currency is someone who understands that currency has different forms, that some bills are traceable in ways that others are not, and that the specific legal status of the money matters. This one word told investigators something immediate. They were not dealing with an amateur. The parachute demand told them something else. He asked for 4 parachutes specifically, 2 primary parachutes and 2 reserve parachutes. For years, investigators believed this was because Cooper planned to use one and was demanding backups in case one was faulty. But there is another interpretation that many analysts now believe is more likely. By demanding 4 parachutes, Cooper ensured that the FBI could not simply sabotage 1 or 2 of them without risk. If Cooper intended to take a hostage with him and jump in tandem, providing only sabotaged parachutes would risk killing the hostage. By demanding 4 and keeping the crew uncertain about which one he would use, Cooper created a situation where the FBI could not safely interfere with any of them. He was thinking several steps ahead. The specific aircraft demands a euro, the altitude, the airspeed, the deployed landing gear, a euro, tell the most detailed story. A Boeing 727 inches 1,971 had a specific performance envelope at low altitude and low speed. The numbers Cooper gave are within the survivable range for a parachute jump, but only barely. He was not asking for conditions that made the jump easy. He was asking for conditions that made the jump possible while minimizing the aircraft's ability to track or follow him effectively at those parameters. These numbers required specific knowledge, not general aviation enthusiasm, specific operational knowledge of this specific aircraft type. Who was D.B. Cooper? This is the question that has consumed investigators, journalists, amateur detectives, and professional researchers for over 50 years. And the note, combined with everything else he left behind, has produced a profile of extraordinary specificity. He was almost certainly military trained. The parachute selection and jump under extreme conditions points strongly to someone with airborne or special operations background. The FBI has consistently maintained that the jump itself, into a storm at night, in freezing temperatures, with no visible ground reference, would have been extraordinarily dangerous for anyone without significant jump experience. He had knowledge of Northwest geography, the flight path he specified, the general area over which investigators believe he jumped, suggests someone who knew the terrain below. The Cascade foothills of southwest Washington are rugged, heavily forested, and extremely difficult to navigate at night. Someone planning to land in that area and survive would need to know what they were landing in. He understood money, the demand for negotiable currency, the specific denomination he accepted, and the way he handled the money bag on the aircraft suggest financial sophistication. He knew the bills would be photographed. He likely knew the serial numbers would be recorded. And he jumped anyway, suggesting either that he had a plan for the money or that he never intended to use it in any traceable way. He was calm. Every witness description of the man in seat 18C emphasizes the same quality. He was extraordinarily calm throughout the entire hijacking. He ate. He drank. He was polite. He showed no signs of agitation, fear, or the adrenaline response that would be expected in someone committing a federal crime for the first time. This is the profile of someone who had operated under pressure before. On the 10th of February 1980, an 8-year-old boy named Brian Ingram was on a family picnic along the Columbia River at a place called Tena, about 15 miles downstream from Vancouver, Washington. He was digging in the sand at the river's edge and found a small bundle of decaying bills bound together with rubber bands. His father examined them. The serial numbers matched. 3 packets of D.B. Cooper's ransom money, totaling 294 $20 bills, had been found partially buried at the edge of the Columbia River. This discovery raised more questions than it answered. The money had clearly been in the water for a long time. The bundles were still partially held together by rubber bands, though the rubber had deteriorated significantly. But here is what made the discovery so confusing. The bills were found on a sandbar that had been dredged by the Army Corps of Engineers after 1971. If Cooper had buried the money at that location, it would have been moved by the dredging. But if the money arrived at Tena Bar by floating down the river, the hydrological analysis showed it did not match the expected path from any of the proposed jump zones. The money at Tena Bar does not fit neatly into any theory of what happened to D.B. Cooper. It suggests he either died near the river, or the money was separated from him at some point, or the money traveled a path that nobody has yet been able to fully explain. The remaining 9,706 bills, €, 97%, of the ransom, €, have never been found. The FBI formally suspended active investigation of the D.B. Cooper case in July 2016, citing a need to redirect resources to other priorities. The case file, however, remains open. It is classified as an unsolved extortion and aircraft piracy case, and it remains the only unsolved case of air piracy in American aviation history. Over the decades, more than 30 men have been seriously proposed as D.B. Cooper by investigators, journalists, family members, and researchers. None of them has ever been confirmed. Some of the most serious candidates have included military veterans, former parachutists, and aviation professionals. None of the evidence against any specific individual has ever risen to the level required for the FBI to name an official suspect. The single physical clue that has perhaps generated the most analysis is the clip-on tie that Cooper left behind on seat 18C. He removed it at some point during the flight and left it on the seat. The FBI analyzed this tie extensively. In 2007, a private investigation team working with the FBI's cooperation reported that they had found particles on the tie that included rare earth elements not commonly found in consumer products. Specifically, they found titanium, bismuth, and a specific type of pure aluminum that was consistent with manufacturing processes used in aerospace and defense industries in the late 1960s and early 1970s. This finding pointed, again, to someone with a connection to advanced manufacturing, aerospace, or defense work. Not a random criminal. Not someone with a casual familiarity with aircraft. Someone embedded in or adjacent to the industries that built them. The ransom note, the parachute demands, the flight instructions, the clip-on tie, and the money at Tena Bar together form a kind of cipher. Not a cipher in the traditional sense of encoded symbols, but a cipher in the deeper sense. A collection of clues that encode a specific human being, a specific background, a specific life, that when fully decoded should reveal a name. 53 years later, that name remains unknown, but the cipher itself keeps speaking. New forensic techniques have been applied to the tie. New hydrological modeling has been done on the money discovery. New witness accounts from that Thanksgiving flight continue to emerge as participants age and decide to speak. And somewhere in the Pacific Northwest wilderness, there may still be physical evidence of what happened to the man who called himself Dan Cooper. Because here is the thing that separates this case from almost every other unsolved crime in American history. D.B. Cooper did not simply disappear. He left evidence. He left a tie. He left a demand note. He left behind the memory of 36 passengers and 6 crew members who looked at him, spoke to him, served him a drink. He left behind 10,000 photographed bills, most of which have never appeared anywhere in the financial system in 53 years. He left behind a cipher that describes him in extraordinary detail. And the answer is in there. It always has been. The FBI has your tip line open. The serial numbers of the remaining bills are publicly available. The tie is in evidence. The case is still officially open. And somewhere, possibly, someone knows who Dan Cooper really was. Someone who knew him when he was young. Someone who heard him talk about airplanes and money and the Pacific Northwest. Someone who noticed he was gone after Thanksgiving 1971 and never asked where he had been. If that is you, or if you know who that person might be, the case has never been closed. Because the most sophisticated unsolved cipher in American criminal history is not written in symbols or code. It is written in a black clip-on tie, a demand note, a very specific set of flight instructions, and $200,000 that mostly disappeared into the American wilderness 53 years ago. Somewhere in all of that, a man is still hiding, and we are still looking. If this case has made you think differently about what a cipher really is, a euro, not just symbols on paper, but a pattern of choices that encodes a human being, a euro, then Shadow Cipher Files is exactly where you need to be. Every case on this channel is chosen because the evidence contains a code. Sometimes that code is literal. Sometimes, like D. B. Cooper, the code is the person themselves, a euro, hidden in every choice they made, every word they wrote, every object they touched and left behind. Next week, we are going into a case where the code is literal, handwritten, and has been debated by experts for 30 years. A note found at a crime scene that some analysts say proves guilt, and others say proves innocence. A note so contested that it split an entire investigation in two directions simultaneously and has never been resolved. Subscribe so you do not miss it. The notification bell is there for a reason, and leave a comment below. Do you think D.B. Cooper survived the jump? Or did he die in that storm over Washington? I genuinely want to know what you think. This is Shadow Cipher Files. The cipher is always there. You just have to know how to read.